So, a couple of months ago, I found this list on Instagram, which shows a bunch of brands that allegedly use prison labor to make their products. Now, this is great and all, but it is only an image. What if I went shopping and wanted to quickly search this? This led to the idea of making an app, although not publishing it, but I had no idea how to make an app, so why would I try it? Just for the fun of it, really. After some quick research, I found that iOS and Android had different ways of creating apps, which means I would need to make one version for iOS and one for Android. Considering that I have an Android phone and a tiny bit of experience with Java, I decided to try my luck with Android first. To get started, all I had to do was download Android Studio. There you can install different emulated Android phones, although they do install to the C drive. So if you're like me and your C drive is a very low space SSD, you're going to want to go ahead and go to your path environment variables and change that. Just look up online and you'll be able to quickly do that. Anyways, making an app with Android Studio is actually really simple. They have this design builder that allows you to easily drag and drop components to build a UI, and all you really have to do is some coding. The design I wanted was a list of cards, which is a pretty big trend in Android development. Luckily, this channel had a wonderful tutorial doing this exact thing, and in no time I had a very solid looking app. All I needed to do was get the information from a JSON file and add a few more things, which I did in no time. However, it just didn't feel right to design an app purely for Android. Lucky for me, due to following a bunch of Android Studio tutorials, a video about Flutter popped up into my recommendations. I clicked on it, but after realizing it was not Android Studio, I clicked off of it. But later that day, that video popped back into my head, and I decided to see what this whole Flutter thing was about. If you're in the dark like I was, Flutter is this toolkit developed by Google to build apps for basically anything, really. All you have to do is design the app using the Dart programming language, and then it compiles all of that into the necessary files for iOS, Android, desktop, whatever. The only issue that I really had with it was how the UI works. Everything in Flutter is a widget. Everything. These widgets then nest inside other widgets to form these very complex widget trees, which can be really hard to wrap your head around, because this thing will inherit this thing from its parent, and that will inherit something from its parent, and these functions will have these things already inheriting from parents you don't even know about. So when you try changing this thing, it tries changing this other thing, or doesn't change it, and you're just, I don't know. It's so confusing. It's, I would say, like a more complex HTML in that aspect. And I'm not really good at HTML either, so you can imagine how annoying it can be. And it gets even more complicated when you move on to trying to optimize this, using things like the set state function, and learning about stateless versus stateful widgets, and then trying to make sure that when one thing updates, it doesn't update this other thing, and it can just be really confusing sometimes. Now, I imagine this takes a lot of time to learn. I imagine it because I didn't. I didn't pay any attention to it. My purpose was to learn how to make an app, and that was it. So, no optimizing for me. By far my worst enemy when designing this app was trying to load a JSON file from the web. In Android Studio, I was able to quickly load one from my computer. But when I switched, I realized it would make more sense to have it be online, since if this was ever actually published, that JSON file would probably be changing all the time. So I searched for hours and hours on how to do it, and for the life of me, nothing I tried worked. Until finally, one video out of the dozens I watched worked. This was it. All you had to do is get the URL, decode the response, add all that information to a list, and then return that list. Nothing super complicated or anything, but it probably took me the most time to figure out. Then comes all the future and asynchronous stuff. Now, I personally do not have much experience with asynchronous functions. That's a very big skill I'm lacking in, so I do try to avoid it at all times, but Dart utilizes it a lot, So I found that often functions would return these variables, but they would be wrapped in some kind of future form, so I could never actually use them because an error would just pop up. And honestly, I still don't really have my head wrapped around it, though I'm sure it's quite simple. But with all that in place, the app was pretty much complete. If I wanted to publish it, I would just have to do a bunch of research and push all that information to that JSON file on the web. The final thing I tried doing was getting a custom icon. First, I tried doing this manually, following an article, but that broke my entire app for some reason. So I had to start a new app and then just copy and paste my code over. And after trying that, I found out that there was a package that already changed the icons for you, published by Flutter. So I just used that instead. Making an app was something that I've thought about doing since I started coding. I think just about everybody does, even people who don't code. And it was actually pretty fun to do it, even if my app is shoddy, to put it mildly. I really wanted to actually publish this. In fact, that was my original intent. But after some research into defamation laws and iOS and Android guidelines, I found that for legal reasons, I probably should not publish it because I'm just some random teenager and this list would contain billion-dollar companies. So I decided not to publish it. But I do hope to make another app in the future which doesn't attack companies and then publish that. But we'll see. For my next project, I think I'll look more into asynchronous stuff, as that's a big thing in the coding world and I have no idea how to do it properly. But then again, maybe something else will catch my eye. I don't know. Guess you'll just have to wait and see.